Welcome to the podcast, everyone. Two interests of mine amongst my many interests are the topics of mental health and history. It is indeed not often that we hear of them going together in the context of a town's history. Well, that is exactly what is happening in Mullingar at the moment, and I'm here today in the library in the town, joined by two women from the Transformative College in Westmeath and by a well-known local historian. We'll start with you, Alice. Alice, could you introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us who are the Transformative College here in Westmeath?
My name is Alice McDonnell and I'm the Coordinator of the Transformative College here in Mullingar. And what we do, we offer mental health education and wellness. We use a recovery approach, which is the new way of providing services in the community for people suffering from different issues around mental health, and their family members and service providers. So what we use would be a co-production process where the classes will be identified by students themselves, what they feel needs to be addressed. And what we do then is put a session together where we'd have service users, family members and professionals together, and they would design a curriculum. And it would be led by the students and the professionals and co-delivered then out to the community members. So we'd go to community groups and we'd run classes in our offices in Austin Friar Street, but also we would go outreach to schools or to organisations that request some support around, creating wellness in the community. We're also working with the Trialogue, which is a monthly session that we'd have a community conversation on topics around stigma, medication or access to services, and that is very powerful because it removes the barriers maybe to people that don't want to be seen going to a service, but they're learning about who they can go to in the times of distress. So it's really all very positive, it's all very proactive. It is not sort of dependent on medication or doctors or GPs. It's everybody taking ownership and creating awareness around good mental health.
Yeah, I'm aware of the organisation in Roscommon, East Galway, Rigari, and I've spoken to Alice there a couple of times and hope to interview her in the future. The recovery colleges, this is a new movement in Ireland. Is it an Irish movement, or did it come from somewhere, another country, or what's the story like?
It originally, I suppose, it's global, to be honest. In Canada, UK has loads of recovery colleges and very successful in Scotland. So Ireland has developed its own framework under the HSE, which just was launched there in November. And so the recovery movement is actually, it's really, taken off now in Ireland. So we've 2 years to roll it out across the country. So the recovery colleges would be based in all the CHO areas, which are the community health organisations. So I suppose Mullingar is very lucky that we have a college here, and we're serving Longford as well, and we're starting at Loan, providing classes there next semester. So we would work with Rigari and other colleges sharing information, and there's learning sets that would be provided to keep people upskilled. Plus there's, for the first time, peer support workers being hired by the staff of mental health in the community. And that's a big movement because these are people who have gone through the system, who know what it's like to be a service user, and to help others to recover and show them, there is hope, there is that sort of connection with the community, that they're part of the community and not isolated. So less institutional interventions.
I mentioned Rigari there, you mentioned Rigari as well. What are the other colleges in Ireland? Do you know what they are, what their names are off the top of your head?
There's Dublin North, DCU have one. There's one in Kilkenny, a very good one in Kilkenny. It's excellent. They have an involvement centre as well as the college. There's Roscommon, there's Limerick, and there's Galway as well. I suppose it's a slow process, but it's getting there, and it's removing the culture. So trying to get the organisations to work with the community is the biggest challenge. But once that's overcome, it happens very quick. So we've 2 years of a window to make I suppose the recovery colleges in every CHO area, which is, as I say, every region of the mental health service.
So there's more opening over the next 2 years?
Yeah, that's the way it's going to be.
So all the country will be covered, will it?
Eventually. That's ARI, Advancing Recovery Ireland, are promoting it and rolling it out, and they're working with community sector and the HSE and professionals in trying to get them to come together to put a framework, because there is the national framework that we've all to work to. So again, it's making it happen is to make it a reality for people, because it does work. It has huge success, and particularly when it looks at the whole family, the person individually, and the organisations in the community. So there's less of the barriers. I would say there's more progression into education or more progression into work. That it's not all dependency.
How do most of your students hear about you and the work that you do and get in contact with you?
At the moment, it's word of mouth. I would say would be the biggest. It's when people are in crisis, they will contact us. And I suppose the next would be social media, like Facebook, LinkedIn would be the main. We don't have a marketing. We're not part of the funding streams yet. We have small funding from the local council or from the Ireland funds. They've been our biggest supporter, would be the Ireland Fund, and they've kept our doors open for the last year. But we're 5 years on the go, and we've run the whole college on €800 1 year. So it's all voluntary. No one's paid.
They're all voluntary.
All, yeah.
Fair play.
And we have counsellors as well. We offer one-to-one and group counselling as well, that's all voluntary.
That's brilliant. Fair play to you. Hope you get funding soon enough.
We're making the change anyway, so that's the main thing.
If we can move on and talk about the project you are working on. Paula, could you introduce yourself and tell me a bit about the project, please?
Hi. Okay, my name is Paula Griffin. I am the project manager for the Heritage and Landmarks of Mullingar project. What we're trying to do is, as I said, this project started off as an idea. I did a heritage course a long, long time ago. I'm a qualified tourism and heritage guide. We decided one day, we were looking at Mullingar as a town, and we realised there is a huge amount of people who are in recovery and who need recovery. These people tend to sit at home, they tend to be on their own, they don't tend to go out and do things. The idea of the project was, number one, to promote Mullingar. Number two is to encourage people to become involved. What we're finding at the moment is anyone who's coming on board and getting involved is actually, from doing the research, are getting their drive back. They're going out, they're meeting people from different sectors of the community. They're actually getting a sense of pride in what they're doing. They're also learning so much. At the end of the day, what we're seeing is people who are now starting to become part of the community where they felt isolated before. The project in itself, we find we have schools wanting to come on board. We have different groups. We have arts and crafts groups. We have artists coming on board, photographers. And obviously we have our local historian, Ruth, which you'll be speaking to now in just a couple of minutes. Ruth would be kind of like the mentor for the group. She's there. She's our go-to person. She has all that information. What we're trying to do is encourage people to do the research for themselves, because that in itself is encouraging people back out into the field, getting people back into work or getting them education ready. At the end, what we want for the project is to be able to have a large-scale map which will show the heritage sites of the town. We'll encourage tourists to come in, and we will actually have hopefully little signs on each of these areas and some research done. And what will be there at the end of the day is something that the whole community can be proud of, and that people who once felt isolated will actually have a sense of pride and a sense of community, and it will help their mental health. So that's the kind of the plan behind.
Do you have to be a member of the Transformative College to take part? You mentioned their schools are getting involved, so I presume you don't.
No, you don't have to be a member of the Transformative College. It started off as being part of the Transformative College, and the Transformative College will actually be the main people who will be running it. But the project is open to anyone in the local community who's interested in local history, local heritage, and who wants to get out there, meet new people, because there's such an opportunity out there, and the amount of people that you can meet in a day, the information that you're getting from locals that even you can't get from books, you can get some information from locals. So it's not just for people in the college, it's for anyone who wants to become involved. Just come along and help us with the research and start enjoying yourself, because that is what it's about. People are enjoying themselves doing this project. It's all about inclusion. Exactly.
Yeah, it's a brilliant idea. Okay, last but not least, we come to you, Ruth. I know you are a historian. Could you introduce yourself to our listeners, and could you tell me how, when and how you first became interested in history and then in the history of Mullingar?
My name is Ruth Illingworth. I'm a historian. I've written a couple of books, histories of Mullingar. I'm also a former mayor of the town. I think my passion for history probably started when I was a child. My grandmother had been a teacher for many years, and her house was full of books, and she encouraged me. And so when I went to university, I studied history and took degrees in it. So it's always been one of my great passions. And Mullingar is a town with an incredibly rich history and heritage, the only town in Ireland to be named after a miracle. And I'm really excited about this project because I think it's important for people who live in Mullingar, in the Mullingar area, to take a pride in the place they come from. Mullingar sometimes seems, indeed Westmeath often seems a little bit overshadowed by neighbouring counties. We're rather shy, I think, about promoting ourselves. So I'm delighted that this project is going ahead because it's going to be an opportunity to sell Mullingar to the wider world as a place with a great history, musical heritage, sports and arts heritage. I mean, James Joyce was here, never forgot the town. And so I'm very happy to be involved, to have been asked to be involved with this and to help the people who are working on the various landmarks, the various parts of this project. I agree it's going to be great for them. It's going to give them a real pride in their community and a sense of achievement. And I think it's going to be very important for the town of Mullingar. And I very much look forward to watching the project unfold and giving whatever assistance I can to those involved with it.
Yeah, I've loved history as well since I was a kid, particularly 20th century history, you know, so you can maybe talk a bit about the earlier history. I wouldn't know much about that. But I lived in Mullingar for 3 years in the mid to 80s. My mum was originally from the town here. We lived in St. John's Terrace. And obviously her parents are from here, and her father, my granddad, was actually the head male nurse in St. Lomans. He retired in 71 and died in 72, which was before I was born. When I think of Mullingar, and as I say to you, I know more about 20th century history than going before that, but the landmarks I think of with the most heritage in Mullingar off the top of my head in no particular order would be the train station, the Cathedral of Christ the King, Columns Barracks and St. Lomans Hospital. For somebody who does not know Mullingar very well compared to the people living in the town, is that a good or bad summary, or is there a lot more to the history and heritage of the town than that?
Well, it's a pretty good summary. There would be a lot more as well. You could multiply the buildings, but certainly the buildings you've mentioned there. I mean, to take the railway station, Mullingar has one of the finest surviving Victorian-era railway station complexes in the country. I've brought people on tours there, railway enthusiasts, and they just love it. It was a very important rail junction for many, many decades, well into the 20th century. It's mentioned in James Joyce's writings. St. Lomans Hospital, again, a very fine Victorian-era building, which functioned as one of the main employers in the town of Mullingar up until very recently. And the cathedral, obviously, technically, I think we could call ourselves a city, because if you've got a cathedral, you're kind of the gorgeous, and there is the famous 19th century song about the gorgeous city of Mullingar, and it has some really beautiful artwork. The only examples in Ireland of the work by the great Russian artist Boris Anrep. And then, other buildings, the All Saints Church in Mullingar, which is 200 years old and stands on the site of a church that has been there for 8 centuries. And I mean, you mentioned even the 20th century. I mean, Mullingar was involved in kind of the whole history of 20th century Ireland. The 300 men from this town died in the First World War. The War of Independence touched here. We've had a number of famous historical people, like they have come from here or have lived here. The novelist William Carleton, 19th century novelist, lived in this town. And of recent years, as Ryan Tubridy has talked about, when you think of Mullingar, you think of music. And we have all that extraordinary heritage. Greville Arms Hotel, one of the oldest hotels in Ireland now, and where else in Ireland, outside a museum, can you see a piece of Mars? There's a piece of Mars on display in the Greville Arms Hotel Museum. So it's a very interesting town. The canal, of course, which virtually encircles Mullingar. Again, a very important part of our heritage, and with kind of the promotion of the rail trail and the cycle paths, we have an opportunity to bring ever more visitors to Mullingar and say, this is what we have here. We have this extraordinary town, and one of the things that has always struck me from the tours that I do is that visitors from outside Mullingar, they always tell me how impressed they are by the streetscape of Mullingar. But just walking down that main street from bridge to bridge, the Mullingar Mile, as we used to call it, from the Green to the Dublin Bridge, and all the shops and businesses there. It's a very vibrant town. The Market House, which is one of our landmark buildings. So that's what we have here. We have this extraordinary town and this extraordinary history and heritage. And we'd like to share it with the rest and tell, there's nothing in Mullingar. Actually, there's a hell of a lot in Mullingar.
And you mentioned musical heritage. Joe Dolan was from here, wasn't he?
Joe Dolan was born in Mullingar, grew up here, kept a home here throughout his life, was immensely proud of Mullingar. Wherever he went in the world, from Moscow to Las Vegas, he would always mention Mullingar. He really was proud of his Mullingar heritage, and the statue on the Market Square must be one of the biggest tourist attractions in Westmeath. I mean, every hour of every day people are there having themselves photographed with that statue. And, of course, in more recent times we have Niall Horan, whose great-grandfather worked in the railway station at the time of the War of Independence and was mentioned as having helped the rebel cause at that time. And Niall has something like 50 million followers on Twitter and Facebook, and tells them at every opportunity about Mullingar, and even where you can get a good pint or chips in the town. And we've an array of other towns. I mean, when people, Comhaltas Comhaltóirí Éireann, which is, one of Ireland's greatest cultural organisations, and is, all over the world now, over, I think, 400 branches in Ireland and overseas. It was founded in Mullingar in 1951. It started here. The very first Fleadh Cheoil under Comhaltas's auspices was in this town in the summer of 1951. I mean, we staged the All-Ireland flag again in 1963, and it became rather notorious, so notorious that a poem was written about it by the great poet John Montague 10 years after.
Well, what happened at it?
Well, he called it the Siege of Mullingar, and apparently about 70 to 90,000 people descended on the town. Not all of them were actually interested in Irish traditional music. They were dancing the conga in the streets, and what the one paper described as the beatniks. They were a bit confused about what name to give these people. Someone else described them simply as the scum of Dublin arrived in for the weekend, and I think that's why we've never had the Fleadh Cheoil here ever since. But I mean, it is immortalised in a poem by one of 20th century Ireland's greatest poets, whom I assume was here for that weekend. It was the weekend Pope John the 23rd died. With perfect timing, he died just as the Fleadh was ending. So that's, one of the sort. And I said James Joyce was here, and that is something really, really significant. There is a railway station in Slovenia with a plaque on the wall commemorating the fact that on one occasion, and only one occasion, James Joyce stayed there while he was waiting for a train. He was in the station for probably no more than an hour, and they have a plaque. He was in this town for 6 weeks in one summer, 1900, and for a short period the following year. He never forgot Mullingar. It turns up again and again, most particularly in Ulysses. And I think that is something, the Greville Arms Hotel, to their credit, they do mark that, and there are other places do as well. But that is something we should be really proud of, that one of possibly the greatest Irish novelist of the last 100 years was in Mullingar and always remembered this town.
You mentioned their Comhaltas Comhaltóirí Éireann. They have a centre here in the town, don't they?
They do. Orison Willan. It's the regional centre for Comhaltas. It opened in 2010, and they have lots of events there throughout the year. And again, it's a great thing of highlighting our heritage and history. And I mean, even Orris and Willan, the building they're in was the former vocational school building where, in fact, Joe Dolan went to school. And it's worth noting that while Joe obviously made his career in sort of pop music, that he did have a love of traditional music. He was related to noted traditional musicians who were involved in the early years of Coltus, Joe Gavigan. And so that itself is a historic building where they're at. And, you know, we have a very lively and continuing traditional music scene in this town, along with many other types of music. I mentioned classical music, the great soprano Ailish Tynan, who has performed on the BBC and has performed all over the world. She is from Mullingar. So, we have a quite endless array of talent. We have a wonderful town band, which traces its origins back.
In the 80s.
They trace their origins back to 1879, and they have won awards for their as a marching band, and they're one of the great assets of this town. And we have also St. Finian's College, which was once the diocesan seminary for the Roman Catholic Diocese of Meath, that the Schola Cantorum in the music school, founded in 1970, that has produced an endless stream of talented musicians. So we have a huge cultural heritage. We have a sporting heritage. We've had Olympic medalists have been here. John Joe Nevin, who won silver at the London Olympics in 2012. Maxie McCulloch, who won gold at the 1949 European Boxing Championships. Chris Cole, who defeated the famous Jack Doyle, the gorgeous Gael in Dalymount in 1943. There are just three of them. We have the Mullingar Harriers, who won numerous awards. We have a whole array of talent.
Who are the Mullingar Harriers again?
They're our athletics club, the main athletics club in the town. They were founded in 1975, and many, many of members of that club have distinguished themselves in Ireland and at European events as runners.
The GAA County Grounds is in Mullingar, is that true, is it?
That's correct, yeah, Cusack Park. The Westmeath GAA was set up in 1889, and in 1933 they opened the Cusack Park, and it's the county headquarters. I mean, the opening ceremony was itself rather notable because the ball, to start the match, the plane flew over the grounds and dropped the ball from the plane, and it said the ball missed the grounds and ended up either in a neighbouring timber yard or the canal. I'm not sure where, but it didn't go where it was supposed to go. And 5 years after that event, there was a match on the 14th of August 1938, and Radio Éireann hired a young, he was still only, I think, in his teens, a man from Tipperary to do the commentary, and that was Micheál O'Hare, who became the voice of the GAA and indeed other sports in Ireland for the next half century. His career started in Mullingar, and there's a bust of Micheál now on the wall of the county grounds.
You mentioned the GAA's county grounds in Mullingar. We're in the library now in Mullingar, and it's part of the county buildings. The county buildings for the council is Mullingar as well, isn't it?
Oh yes, I mean the county of Westmeath was created in 1542, and Mullingar was made the county town by an act of the Irish Parliament, and it remains the county town to this day. Westmeath County Council was founded in 1898. And in 1912, having spent their first decade across the road in the nearly 200-year-old courthouse building, they moved into new buildings, and a more modern building, the one we're sitting in now, opened in 2009. So this is the capital of Westmeath, and it's a very historic site because this has been an administrative site for as long as the town of Mullingar has existed, going back to around 1190, when a man called William Pettit was granted land here. He was one of the Norman barons, and he built his castle where this building, the county buildings, stand now. And he also, his brother built the first parish church just across the road from us, where All Saints Church stands now. And we still have parts. It became The castle was demolished in the 1700s. Unfortunately, we don't, unlike Athlone, we don't have our castle anymore. But a jail was built, the county jail for Westmeath, and parts of that building, including the governor's house, are still standing. So you can see quite a bit of at least the 18th, 19th century heritage of this part of the town. So we're really where the town began, and the county hall, as it used to be known now, the Mullingar Arts Centre, which is part of the complex. That again is a very historic and significant building. It opened in 1913. I think it was actually opened by the future President of Ireland, Dr. Douglas Hyde. And on the stage there has everybody who's anyone in Irish theatre has appeared on that stage. Everyone from the great entertainer Maureen Potter, Cyril Cusack, the Abbey Theatre, even a Nobel Prize winner, the playwright Harold Pinter. He appeared on the stage there in 1952, along with an actor who died just a few weeks ago, Kenneth Haig, who created the role of Jimmy Porter in the play Look Back in Anger. So it's one of the greatest regional theatres in Ireland. The All-Ireland School Dramas Festival they go there every year. They won't go anywhere else now because it's such a fine place, and that's another part of our immensely, our rich history and heritage. There's 800 years of history just on this site where we are now.
The courthouse, how long has that been open?
Almost 2 centuries. It opened in 1827. They started building it in 1824, and it opened for business at the end of the 1820s. It's actually been extended and modernised at the moment. Again, a very historic building. It was the seat of the County Council for the first decade of their existence. It was the seat of Mullingar Town Commission for many decades, and James Joyce worked there. When he and his father had been brought to Mullingar to sort out the electoral registers for the town, which were hopelessly out of date. Lots of dead people got to vote, not many living people voted. And they worked in that building. As they also worked up in Cathedral House, up near the modern cathedral dates in the 1930s as the second cathedral to stand on that site. But Cathedral House, which used to be known as the Bishop's Palace, or the Palace, that dates back to the 1870s. A very fine example of 19th century religious architecture designed by one of the great 19th century Irish architects, William Hague. And again, Joyce and his father worked there. And a man who went on to win that rare and very prestigious bravery award, the Victoria Cross, Lieutenant Maurice Dease, one of the very first British soldiers killed in the First World War. He received his first Holy Communion in that building, in the Cathedral House, when he was 7 years of age. He was 25 when he was killed.
I just have one more question to ask about the history, heritage of Mullingar. It's something that I didn't think of until we started talking, but when I was a teenager for a few years, I used to like the Wolf Tones, the band, and they have a song called, as you probably all know, The Man from Mullingar, and it's one of the most spirited songs. When it's being played at a concert, everyone's jumping up and down. It's a very spirited song. But is that based in reality, that song?
I think it is, yeah. And we are, Mullingar is had quite a tradition as a rebel town in the 18th century, although things were quiet here in Mullingar during 1798. The jail on this site was full of suspected rebels. Again, during the time of the Young Irelanders in 1848, people were imprisoned here. We had a fiery Member of Parliament here in the early 1900s, Larry Gannell, the Member for Ireland, as he became known, whose wife, Alice King, was from Mullingar, and she was the first female election agent in Irish or British history, something she was very proud of. And we did have quite an active unit of the old IRA in the period of 1918 to 1921. And Michael Collins came here a couple of occasions. He was hidden out in a house in the town during the War of Independence, and during the truce he was of course able to move around freely and openly, and he came back to Mullingar. He was in Mullingar only 2 weeks before he was killed.
The man in that song is called Paddy Mulligan. Was there a Paddy Mulligan?
I think there probably was. And the interesting things about, we had a curious history in Mullingar. We were a rebel town, And we were also a British garrison town, and there were men who were in both. There were British soldiers, and then they became rebels, and there were soldiers who kind of gave assistance to the rebels. So, and I mean, that's just something to mention. And it's one of the buildings we'll be looking at in this project. It's the army sadly have gone from Mullingar now, but for 400 years this was a garrison town. An army drawn from every country in Europe was based here in the winter of 1690-91 during the Williamite Wars. And soldiers from here served all over the world. And one of the things in the last couple of years we've been very proud of in Mullingar is they finally got around to honouring the veterans of the Battle of Jadotville in the Congo in 1961. And 3-4 of those veterans were either from Mullingar or came to live in the town. And that is something I think we should be immensely proud of. The military heritage of Mullingar is a very rich one, and our rebel heritage, which I have been exploring in walking tours, looking at Mullingar, the revolutionary town, is also a very important one. We had Dr. Ada English, who was one of the more than 300 women who took part in the Easter Rising. She was down in Portumna, and she was a member of the Second Dáil. She was a founding member of Cumann, and she grew up in this town. Her father was a town councillor and pharmacist. I actually grew up across the road from where she lived as a child, and we also the De Courcy suite in the Greville Arms Hotel, that's named after Dr. Annesley De Courcy Wheeler, who lived in what is now part of the hotel for over 25 years. He was a cousin of Countess Markovitz. Countess Markovitz came to Mullingar. In fact, so did Patrick Pearse. Patrick Pearse was here in 1901 and addressed the inaugural meeting of the Mullingar branch of the Gaelic League and gave a speech on the importance of bilingualism in a building which is still standing, St Mary's Hall in Bishopsgate Street near the cathedral.
Yeah, I just find it incredible that man, Paddy Mulligan, doesn't seem to be any, that I know of, historical records of him around, is there?
No, I don't think so. I mean, that's something that we might need to investigate a little bit further to see but there may well be, or if he's not an actual person, he's based on real people.
Will you be publishing the project when it's finished, like in a book, for example, or on the internet?
I believe that is on the internet, on a website, and it's and I think it is important, because I would say about history, and a lot of people got turned off history in school because I think it was all about memorising dates and battles and things that didn't seem to have any relevance to people's lives. But history is basically storytelling, and nowadays the way we tend to tell stories, it's more visual than it was. So, and people look to kind of the internet and things for information. So that's what we're going to be doing, and I think it is going to be important, because what we're doing here is the people who are going to be working on this project, they're going to be telling or helping to tell the story of their town, the story of the county town of Westmeath, and sharing a wonderful history and heritage that a lot of people don't know about. A lady said to me the other night, it's amazing, you go all over the world to see places and there's so much history on your own doorstep you don't know about. So that's what is going to happen here.
Alongside the resource on the internet you're working on for the town, I know you mentioned you have a couple of books yourself. Are there any other historical resources of the town you would recommend to people from the town or people interested in the town? Well,
I said that I've written 3 books at this stage on Mullingar, a history and guide, Mullingar, images of Mullingar, which is the 20th century story of the town, and the Little Book of Westmeath, which obviously touches on Mullingar among other parts of the county. And we're very lucky in Westmeath. We have a wonderful county library service here, and the room we're sitting in, the local studies room in the heart of the library in Mullingar, has huge numbers of books, maps, on every aspect really of the history of this town. You could find ordnance survey maps, you can find books. There's the late Colonel Porrick O'Farrell, who was in the military here. He wrote numerous books, including one on Mullingar. Late Philip Tierney did a wonderful book on Mullingar in old picture postcards. He was an authority on postcards. He was an authority on the fairs and circuses. So We have numerous resources here in the county library in Mullingar on all aspects of this town, and people come in here to find. You can source, for example, the 1901-1911 censuses are available online here. So if you're people trying to look up their Mullingar ancestry. And there are literally sort of hundreds of books and material here in the library.
Are you working like kind of yourself intensely on the project?
I will be, yes.
As a started, yeah.
It's in the preliminary stages. Yes, I've been providing information on some of the landmark buildings that we'll be covering in this project, and I expect to be involved very much as it unfolds. I mean, this is the second very exciting project I've been involved in promoting the town in recent years. Just last year there was a visual project, a mural, the Mullingar history mural, which was basically a wall in the Blackhall area of the town, which the Arts Office provided money for artists to do up a mural, very colourful mural celebrating Mullingar's history and indeed its cultural and sporting heritage as well. And it was brilliant to be involved with that, because again that's about promoting the town and saying this is what we have, this is our history. And that's what this project is going to be about, and I'm very much looking forward to being as involved as much as I can with the project and helping those who are going to be doing the research and putting it all together. It's brilliant.
Okay, Ruth, it's great talking to you. It was great talking to the trees. Maybe if you want to come back to you, Alice, just to finish up, if anyone listening to this podcast today from Mullingar or is interested in Mullingar, want to get involved, do you want to say anything else about the project before we finish up?
I suppose the main message we want to get out is the college is for everyone. You don't have to sign up for a class. So long as people get involved, we're just about creating awareness, about creating wellness, that there's other means of connecting people together. And the project being led by Paula and Ruth, mainly, that there's something that's common outside of, diagnosis that people can get. We've family, we've kids getting involved, we've every age group. The website will be there. We're on Facebook if anybody wants to check us out, or send an email at westmeadtc@gmail.com.
It's on YouTube as well, isn't it?
Yeah, we're on YouTube. We try to, it's the cheapest form of media that we can employ. Like if we hope to do as part of this as well as a narrative on St. Lomans, the storytelling, again, because we want to capture the real life, because we forget about our past, but there's a lot of learning from our past, and that's where we're coming from, to learn from our past. So the future looks better then, and people, we've a lot of people that are coming into the town to live, or foreign nationals. Like, they're so interested in what's happening because they want to tell their story. This is where they're living now. They're part of the community. And, it's about that as well, that everybody feel welcome. And that's what Mullingar is opening up its doors to welcome everybody in, to learn about the college, to learn about the town, to learn about the businesses and what it has to offer, because it's a huge untapped resources in this town. Like, a lot of people on the project are not from the town, but everyone has a passion because they see the potential. It's a lovely place to live. We have the lakes, we have facilities that are just forgotten about, and that's what we want to share with everybody. It's here on your doorstep. It's accessible. It's very friendly in the sense of for people with wheelchairs, or accessibility is big. There's no queues as such. It's really open your doors and everyone's welcome. And we can't promote that enough. That this is in the Midlands, and as Ruth says, we have our cathedral. We have so much, with our swimming pool, our town park. We have small parks as well. There's loads of green areas. It's really friendly for kids, and that's all things people don't realise. We're trying to make it's very familiar to us, and sometimes we take it for granted. So we're trying to promote that this is here, and we're here for that.
You mentioned the lakes. This county's called the Lake County, isn't it?
It is. It's called the Lake County, and they're utilised really well too. There's a boat club, and there's a swimming club, diving club as well. Like there's just so much, and the fishing is huge in this area. The fishing is just massive. The competitions and. I can't remember the name of the fish now, but I know if you say anything, particularly around the Life Festival, isn't that on as well? There's some festivals around here as well. As I say, there's so much going on. You need a diary to keep up with stuff. That's why we have Ruth here to tell us what's going on, because you can't be at everything, but there's so much to offer. And then the country fair, the Mullingar Country Fair.
Cultural.
Yeah, it's a fantastic event. Absolutely fantastic.
Is that the fair on during the summer?
Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant, because you get to celebrate all the farming community, but also the crafts and arts and the livestock, and kids get to connect with the roots of the, like, it's a farming area. It's a very rich farming area.
Not so much about bachelors anymore.
No. But also food. Food is massive. There's so, we've Kilbeggan porridge around this area, and the honey, and like the restaurants around here are fabulous as well. So it's all that. We want to sort of promote all that as much as possible. The local, it's a very resilient town, isn't it? Yes. Really resilient.
There's a Christmas fair as well, isn't there?
There's a Christmas fair up in Belvedere, isn't it?
No, we have the Christmas market here in the town as well.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, and that's kind of that's very well promoted.
That's only new in the last couple of years, isn't it?
Yeah.
And our local products is sold at Dash and Crafts as well.
You mentioned the lakes. I love the old diving board. You mentioned as well St. Lomans. You want to focus a part of our project on that.
Specifically on that.
Yes.
We're working with some of the inpatients on that. To tell their stories, and to capture that storytelling element and the language around the times of the change, because this is a huge change in mental health at the moment. It's a fascinating time, because it's moving away, as I say, from the institutional more to the more inclusive, and people have choices, and that's what we want to capture. That.
I was here only a few months ago. I interviewed a lady from outside that lawn. I can't think of her name off the top of my head, but there was do you remember the photo exhibition, Photo Voices? That's right. Yeah, I interviewed the lady, the artist, Rosaleen Heaven, is that her name? Rosaleen Heaven, is that her name?
Yeah, from Mental Health Ireland, I think, and they worked with the community health, the rehab team, That was really a wonderful project. We did something similar ourselves, just we had our exhibition called Sense of Place, and it was all about Uisneach. And from that we created paintings, poetry, arts, carvings, so much involved in that. And again, we had families, professionals and service users using whatever medium, and Claire Kelly was our project lead on that, a community artist, and she brought the best out of everybody. And as I say, when you get people together on a common cause, and that's what we've tried to do, is that we're coming together as equals to create something that has a message. And that particular project has got European recognition now and we're bringing it to Uisneach as an educational for Heritage Week. So that's what.
And what's Uisneach again?
Uisneach, I think Ruth will be the expert now.
One of the things about Mullingar is we're just a few kilometres from one of the most important historical archaeological centres of Ireland. The Hill of Uisneach was a royal assembly site for hundreds of years back in pre-Norman times. It was the seat of the High Kings of Ireland, and it's considered to be the spiritual centre of ancient pre-Christian Ireland, and it is still an important spiritual centre today. People come there for religious reasons. It's a possible future UNESCO World Heritage Site as one of the Royal Assembly sites of ancient Ireland. An application is being drafted to have UNESCO to accept it as a World Heritage Site. And every May, starting in 2009, it was decided to revive the festival. They'd been, in ancient times, they had a festival there to mark the beginning of the Celtic festival of Bealtaine. So it was revived in 2009, and we've had it every year since then. And last year, President Higgins actually lit the fire on the night. So it's, again, it's something that's becoming increasingly important as a tourist attraction. It's just out the road from Mullingar, no more than 15-20 minutes drive from the town centre. So it's again a very important part of our history, our heritage, and for a reason for people to come to Mullingar.
So, you mentioned there, Alice, let's go back to St. Laurence for a second. When I interviewed Rosalie Heaven a few months ago, we talked for a long time about the mental health services to change over the decades, you know. So maybe if you want to, my grandfather was saying, was the head male nurse. He retired in 71, so you could talk to my mum. Maybe she could be able to give you a small bit of information. I don't, she told me only recently that he died before I was born, so I didn't know him now. But 10 years before I was born. But she's saying that he was always battling. What's the word? Bureaucracy. You know what I mean? You know, he's always battling that. Okay. Is there anything else you want to say before we go? Finish up?
I suppose just to follow on from Uisneach, we hope to run a second part of that, built on, actually, Ruth, you were the inspiration for your speech at the launch, that we're going to for the next phase of the Uisneach project, we're going to all about the imagination of Uisneach and the healing powers of Uisneach. That's the next project through the arts again, because it is, we didn't realise how important it was until we brought people on the tours that were taking part in the project, that they really felt the energy that was there, and you know, other people want to join in now, so we're going to build on that learning and about the healing, the centre of Ireland, you know, to promote that as well, because you know, there's, as I say, a lot of forgotten history, but also that people can take ownership of it and start promoting it themselves and bring others and share. Because a lot of the photographs and the paintings that we have produced from that, they've been travelling everywhere on the internet. People want to know more, they want to know the stories, they want to hear the poetry, and you know, we're going to use the songs and traditional crafts around that as well.
Okay, it was great talking to you. Alice, do you want to just give the contact or details of the Transformative College out for any listeners?
The college phone number is 085 143 0909. westmeadtc@gmail.com is the email, and Paula is the project lead on this, so I'll let you do your number.
Yeah, if anyone's interested in helping out, my number is 086 778 0510, and we also have a Facebook page, Mullingar Heritage and Landscapes, and in there you can see some of the photographs that we've taken, some of Ruth's information, and some little snippets of information that we've picked up. We also have old photographs alongside new photographs, so you can actually see how the town looked maybe in 1900 and how it looks now. So they're there, and people can build on that and add their own stories to that as well to help out.
Yeah, he's doing great work. It's great talking to trees today. I'm delighted to learn more about Mullingar, and he's doing it in volunteering capacity. So I hope he's got funding soon. So fair play to his, right? So thanks very much. I'll be talking again at some other stage, right?
Thank you very much, Darren.